Welcome back to Echo Ridge and another episode here in our Max Colonization series, where we've made a little bit of headway, and I think we're about ready to put a couple of duplicants here on this planetoid. Still a long way to go here, but we're definitely ready to provide a little bit of the meat and potatoes. Starting off with our spigot seals, who seem to be doing just fine. This left ranch has had the two seals in here for a little while. We have managed to fill up the incubator, which means I need an additional plan for the rest of the excess eggs. And I think what we're going to do, since we're not scared of food here, being that we can feed all the excess to Experiment 52B, is just make them into omelets. And I think that's going to happen around here somewhere. For the reason why is because I want as much carbon dioxide in the aloe veras as possible. And when the dupes are sitting here at the electric grill, they'll produce carbon dioxide. Not right now, because our current away team dupes are sitting in suits, but you know, the real residents of this colony. We're going to use the backcountry grill because, well, it looks cool. And then I'm going to make sure these tiles here are mesh tiles. That way, the rest of the carbon dioxide that we're going to be producing up here also falls down to the alveo veras. I think this is where our bedrooms, our bathrooms, everything else is going to go right here as well. I'm also in the process of taming this tungsten volcano, with the only difference being is I'm going to use 2 steam turbines. Tungsten is hot, and I mean stupid hot, at 3,726 degrees. So we're going to have to see about that. But the immediate concern is getting oxygen back in the oxygen tank. I was thinking about making some sort of small spalm out of the oxalate coming from the alveo veras, but I need more carbon dioxide. I do have some down here, but it's not a lot. But I suppose something is better than nothing here. So what we're going to do is take all this existing carbon dioxide that's been stuck down here. I'm just going to grab a pump and send it all up here, with the idea that any oxygen that this pump picks up will end up going up where the carbon dioxide will fall. Not going to be that pretty, but it is definitely temporary. Fear not. I also need to get my egg cracker down. The egg cracker is necessary to get rid of the excess eggs that the spigot seals are going to be producing. And then I need to figure out what I'm going to do with all this mercury and everything else. Mercury has been somewhat of a pain. I had a nice mercury explosion in between the episodes that blasted all the nectar out and left me with quite a bit of a mess. To tell you the truth, I think I'm just going to dump the mercury in the vacuum of space. Since I last updated you on the digs, we did unearth a gold volcano and a hydrogen vent. We'll probably tame that hydrogen vent for more power. Gold volcano, we can strap yet another steam turbine on it. But first I want to get these alveo veras going. I'm also going to set up a nice system that's going to be able to grab all the oxalate. And we're going to throw all the oxalate inside of a conveyor loader, where we're going to ship it off into a tiny little oxalate spalm. I don't know what to call them, but they're small, they're compact, and they really do work. I've come up with several designs for them, although there are probably more efficient ones out there, but for our use case, this is going to work out just fine. Well, as soon as the duplicants do everything they need to do, and I suppose I do everything I need to do. Oh, that's taking way too much material. So I think we're just going to put a temporary wheel and battery down here. There we go. I just realized I'm going to need a deep fryer up here as well because of all that tallow to make the squash fries. The only reason I need the backcountry grill is to make the omelets. So I'm going to put the deep fryer here, plug it in with a little bit of power. And I'm starting to fall behind a little bit on duplicant labor, so give me a minute to get caught up. The carbon dioxide and, well, the oxygen is starting to flow. I should probably put a filter on this, especially considering it looks like we've already gotten most of the carbon dioxide that we're going to get. I think it would be smart if I also put a single tile here. That way when the carbon dioxide does fall, there's less of a chance of it getting stuck over here. Oh my goodness, that is a sleeping baby mammoth. I think that's the first time I've seen one sleep. The good news though is it's filled this room up here quite a bit with carbon dioxide. And once we manage to get the rest of it, I will end up just deconstructing this system down here. Eventually we're going to have a more permanent setup where the carbon dioxide is going to be pumped up there. Baby steps though. A rare update from over here on Recallan, where we have a small problem, and that is the fact that we've ran out of oxygen. And the reason why that's happened is because there doesn't seem to be any more polluted dirt to provide to the sublimation station. But it's okay because we have a nice little mini spawn here that's been keeping the atmosuit docks going. All I really need to do is come off of this just a little bit and put in a gas vent. Unfortunately, there's no power for it either, and that's because our hydrogen vent has gone dormant. It does come out of dormancy in 15.5 cycles, no big deal there, especially considering I have a tank of 277 kilos worth of oxygen that we're just going to put onto this canister emptier. So as long as they can find a little bit of oxygen to make do until then, we'll be okay. We've checked breathable gas, oxygen onto the canister emptier. I'm going to put this on a 6. Callie, the longer you just sit there and try to catch your breath, the longer it is that you will not be able to breathe. I know it's counterintuitive. Just go with me on this one. That's already looking a little bit better. Here we have Callie making a little bit more polluted dirt. Unfortunately, it does not appear to be enough. I'll keep an eye on this planetoid for a little while, just to make sure everything's going okay. In fact, I'll add them back to my notification system. Oh, I was already being notified. Apparently, I was just ignoring the notification. Speaking of oxygen, our system here is about done. All I have to do is sweep up what's left, and then I can shut this. Now, for the time being, it's not going to be perfect, because we're not going to be producing a lot of oxalite. Eventually, this aloe vera will only have to provide oxygen for 2 duplicants. You remember, they generate 18 kilos worth of oxalite per cycle, and with each duplicant requiring 60 kilos worth of oxygen per cycle, each duplicant will require 3.3 aloe veras. Well, here we have 8. All I have to do is make sure we continuously have ice and carbon dioxide for them to consume. Ice I'm not too worried about. We're sitting at 624 tons of it. For the near term though, this is the oxygen I'm going to use to refill the oxygen tank on the ESS colonizer. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of room here. So we're going to have to do some weird temporary stuff. I'm going to put a couple more insulated tiles here and then try to squeeze in this gas rocket port loader right here. I don't know if this is going to be enough room. We'll see. And oh my goodness, I just realized you can deconstruct Rover. That seems horribly unnecessary. Do let me cancel that. And there we go. This isn't too shabby at all. This won't help us out permanently. In other words, we're not going to be able to stay here forever because we have 4 duplicants and this is just not enough oxalite to support 4 duplicants. But it'll at least extend our stay here. There is an existing 600 kilos worth of oxalite on this planetoid as well, so that could also help. After all this time, I've realized I still had some gaps. This tile here, even though it's in the black here, was still open to the vacuum of space, as was this tile. So this area wasn't sealed, and we were just wasting all the wonderful oxygen. I really need the spigot seals to get production online. One egg is at 62%, the other is at 61%. The more I can get the spigot seals here, the more ethanol we're going to produce. And I really wanted to get those petroleum generators online. I'm in the process of shipping more iron ore over because we're ready to put in the rails. The next thing I needed to think about though was, where am I going to get the water for this? Yes, I have this place uncorked. In fact, it's waiting to be analyzed now. But I don't have any heat to raise the temperature in this place so that when we turn the brine into water, it won't crack the pipes. So for now, I'm just going to leave this as salt water. Luckily though, we have another source of water here on the planetoid. I just need to find a debris chunk small enough. This debris chunk is 12.9 tons. And if I put 12.9 tons worth of ice right here, well, the tungsten volcano will erupt, melting that ice, and then very quickly turning it into steam, which is kind of what we want. But this room is 40 tiles, and I only want 50 kilos worth of steam pressure in each tile, which means I need 2 tons of ice. So that's what I've been doing. Looking for a small enough ice chunk. I suppose I could play the splitting game, because the dupes aren't actually able to pick up 8 tons of ice. So I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to stick it right here. And as soon as I see that we have 2 tons there, I'm going to cancel the relocate. Back over here on Wintriol, I'm starting to get into the power negatives, and because we're still relying on manual generators, is setting dupe labor back quite a bit. The reason why is because each of these gas pumps takes 240 watts, and then one of my least favorite buildings in the entire game, the gas rocket port loader, takes 240 watts. So we need more power, even if it's just temporary. That's when I realized I don't have a lot of light, but I still do have light. If I would have been smart enough to make all these tiles out of glass, instead of granite, I could just plop down a bunch of solar panels. Sadly, I was not. but I can fix this. Not that I have enough duplicant labor to start on this anyways, so what I think I'm going to do is just stop the O2 from coming in, which will then back up these gas pumps and not require us running on the wheel quite as much. In other news here, we did finish the kitchen. Actually, no, we did not. Kitchen. Okay, it has to have a spice grinder? Really? A spice grinder? Nobody uses the spice grinder! I'd love to not even need to be inside of a kitchen, but the deep fryer requires it. Back to the drawing board on this one. I just thought it'd be nice to have the kitchen right here because of the light being provided by the frosty mini pod. But I suppose nothing prevents me from putting it over here and just having the plume squashes inside the kitchen. Stupid spice grinder. Alright, let me rework this yet again. Here we go. It's not a lot of power. In fact, at this time in the cycle, it's only 22 watts. But hey, that's 22 more watts that we didn't have to run on the wheel for. The pod has given us a pretty incredible duplicant. I have been looking for frost-proof dupes, and so far it has not come to fruition. But check out this Gossman. Building, ranching, cooking, a little bit of everything. And on top of it, already comes pre-skilled in electrical engineering. We might have them colonizing some planetoid in the future. I don't know, but I didn't want to pass up a dupe this good. So welcome to duplicant number 32 of the series, Sigwolf. Next up over here on Winchrill, it is time to get those petroleum generators online because our alveoveras have ran out of carbon dioxide. Now this is going to be a little tricky. Petroleum generators are hot, so I'm thinking about some sort of mini dirty brick that we can then pump out the carbon dioxide. I'm also going to need the cooling loop. Cooling loop is probably going to start from this tungsten volcano because a thermal aqua tuner with supercoolant has no problem keeping a couple of steam turbines nice and chill, so it might as well keep all of this nice and cold as well. But that means we need power. In order to get that much power to run a thermal aqua tuner, well, I'm going to need the petroleum generators. Sort of a quid pro quo situation we've got here. Unfortunately, we're down to 453 kilos worth of oxygen in our tank on the colonizer, which means, once again, it's time to go home. And as we know, it's going to take probably around 22 cycles, 2 to get home, 2 to get back, and about 18 cycles to fill it up once we're there. So for you, it's only going to be a quick cut in the video. For me, it's going to be an hour. One thing I actually had a decent amount of luck with was the fact that Rover's still here and still alive, so when we had a meteor shower, that would have caused the same problems it did last time with the rocket platform being entombed. Well, Rover was going to be able to solve that for us, so long as I don't turn off the game. Right now, Rover is shut down. It's the old classic Rover will not die bug. Now, normally I don't like to take advantage of bugs like this. I'm sort of revolting. Clay had every opportunity during the last Bionics pack to give us a replaceable battery for Rover. Instead, they continue to let Rover die every single time. So this is my act of defiance. Despite my earlier theory, apparently Rover can shut down in the middle of that bug. I don't know what finally squashed the bug, but unfortunately Rover has shut down right here in the middle of the brine tank. We will leave them there to honor their sacrifice of trying to put another insulated tile here to prevent all the brine from just making this place even messier. Only about 15 more cycles. Never mind, Rover woke up. I guess it's just that they had already dropped off all of the granite for the insulated tile, but only a duplicant can build it. Which makes sense because only duplicants can build things that are researchable. So while Rover can build normal tiles, the good boy cannot build insulated tiles. So for just temporaries, I'm going to end up putting a standard tile there. And now eventually the salt slush geyser will end up stifling itself. It'll be a little bit less of a mess to clean up here. We are nearing the finish line for the oxygen tank to be finally filled. Less than a cycle away now. But I wanted to show you a weird bug. Over here on Silvial, remember we were ranching pips. Well, at the time that we set all of this up, we had not discovered Cuttlepip eggs, so we couldn't select them in the egg cracker. Except, well, apparently I still can't select them in the egg cracker. For whatever reason, Cuttlepips are not listed as a crackable egg. Hi everyone, Editor Echo here. Please excuse Recording Echo as he knows not what he does. You actually have to click on the pips menu and then you can select which recipe, whether it be Cuttlepips or standard pips. I learn about this in the next episode. As such, the duplicants have no reason to take the Cuttlepip eggs outside the ranch, so now we have this weird mixture of cramped and crowded and everything's going bad and horrible. It's not too big of a deal, but they are down to 2,900 calories of excellent fruit and some Cuttlepip ribs. But let me know in the comments below if you've seen this particular bug or if it's just time for me to restart. I suppose I will just try to restart, but for the record, once again, Rover's life is on clay, and I'm still not seeing any Cuttlepip eggs here. This makes me think that there was a change in the game that, well, I'm just not aware of. I try to stay current on all the things, but you know how it goes. Yeah, I restarted at the exact wrong time. Windtrill's about to get hit with another meteor shower. And when it does, it's going to entomb this rocket platform again. And now I have no rover to be able to dig it all out. Looks like the ESS Explorer's coming with us as well. In fact, I will send them ahead. Looks like I'm waiting about 2 cycles once again before I can finally continue the real content of this episode. And here we are back again. Rover is being deployed. We're going to have quite a few rovers on this colony before we end up being done. If we ever build a rover monument, it needs to be on this planetoid. After about 22 cycles and, well, a little drama, we are back. And in that time, I think I've thought of a plan. Instead of a regular hot dirty brick, what about a cold brick? We'll freeze the polluted water being generated by the petroleum generators and then ship it off to the tungsten volcano, where it'll turn into steam. So from there, I can siphon out the water from the steam turbines and then, once again, turning it into ice. Now, this is not going to be a 1-to-1 ratio because the alveolaries require 20 kilos per cycle. And while a petroleum generating flat out generates 750 grams of polluted water per second, which comes out to be 450 kilos per cycle, the petroleum generator is not going to be running flat out because, well, we just don't have enough ethanol. I suppose what's next in here is going to be the thermal aqua tuner and getting this going. And I think in addition to keeping this tile cool and providing the chill for our living area, I'm also going to use it to keep our storage cold, which means it would be helpful if this was a metal tile. So let me replace that as well. Now, the only thing that can go really wrong in this setup is if the 2 steam turbines are not enough to keep both the tungsten volcano and the thermal aqua tuner under control. We're going to find out though. Here's the beginning of that cooling loop, with the most important parts being the plume squashes and the alveolaries. I'm just going to rely on this chill here to sort of spread throughout the rest of this biome, because it really doesn't matter if it's a little warmer over here because we have nothing that needs to stay cold there. Now I'm going to adjust this once we figure out what that petroleum cold brick is going to look like. Not to mention the fact that all of the oxygen coming out of our mini little oxalite spawn is sitting at minus 22 degrees anyways. Eventually there is going to be a nice gas vent right here keeping everything oxygenated, but for now this will do. I also need to get a little bit of supercoolant shipped over, so we'll get that set up. All that requires is me putting a bottle of supercoolant on this bottle drainer, and Planetary Launcher will ship it just the same. I'm figuring 2 or 3 bottles will be fine. Okay, here's another change that apparently I am just unaware of. Is it my save file, or are we no longer allowed to use iron ore for rails? I have 7 tons of it sitting here, but it's not even listed as an appropriate material. But if I click on conveyor rail, we can scroll down and see it requires metal ore, and when you click on metal ore, well, obviously iron ore comes up. Once again, let me know in the comments below if I'm just behind the times, or is this save file sent to destroy me? So I suppose for now this is going to be all steel. And because, well, the duplicants don't have enough to do, let's start planning that petroleum cold brick. Now right now we have a total of 5 spigot seals, but more importantly we have 3 in this ranch, and it seems to be doing fine with nectar. The more spigot seals we can maintain, the more ethanol we get. The more ethanol we get, the more power we can generate, and the more carbon dioxide I can create. Now I'm thinking that 2 petroleum generators is the number, because I'm going to want to have 2 different circuits. One for the thermal aqua tuners, and one for everything else on this planetoid. And as we said, I'm going to try to keep this nice and chill, and that way we instantly freeze all that polluted ice. So I think that looks good. We'll have the petroleum generators here, and I'll have an auto sweeper and a conveyor loader here. I'm also going to need a gas pump for the carbon dioxide. And it would probably be better if all of this was on some metal tiles. And that way, when the polluted water drips, it instantly freezes. The pod finally gave me a frost-proof dupe. Unfortunately, they have bottomless stomach. And I'm not playing that game. This colony has been a pain enough, instead of allowing Ascan to get their way. So, the search continues. I was running pipes and I've realized once again I've sent entirely too much supercoolant. Abort! Abort! Please stop sending the good stuff. Man, sometimes my reminders need reminders. But I'm running the ethanol line down now, and I think what I'm going to do is prioritize the plume squashes to make sure we have all the calories we need, but then I can overflow out from here into what's going to be our petroleum generators. Although it would be great if I had a nice buffer tank too, though. Maybe I can squeeze a buffer tank in here? Let's see, we've got petroleum generators here. Yeah, there's no way I'm getting a buffer tank in there. But there's no reason why I can't extend this a little bit. I'm going to need room for a battery anyways. And I'm not going to extend the cooling loop. I'm just worried about the heat source. Of course, the battery is going to create some heat too. But by extending this cold brick out just a little bit, it'll give me the advantage of having more room for the pipes. Because I still need to be able to get the ethanol in and then feed the petroleum generators with it. So you know there's going to be more bridges in here. I just realized each petroleum generator is going to need its own battery. I love making compact builds. I really do. But sometimes I need to get out of my own way. Okay, if I've managed to do this without flipping a bridge, I'm going to give myself a pat on the shoulder. Our coolant starts off being chilled at the thermal aqua tuner and then goes up and around, cooling both the tile that the tungsten's coming through and the colony's storage. It then cools the steam turbines, travels over, then up, keeping the plume squashes cold, and then down, keeping the alveolaris cold. Pops a couple of bridges to avoid the ethanol going into the petroleum generators, goes around and then back up, where it will eventually end up back into the thermal aqua tuner. I also don't remember if I told you, but I did find the 2 carved lumen quartz, and this is one of the reasons why I am thinking we may be able to support 4 spigot seals. I put 1 in each ranch, which gives us a little bit of extra light, so we'll see. But all of that is done, as we were saying before, just to try to get us a little bit more ethanol. Now I'm going to end up filling this whole cold brick with carbon dioxide. I don't love it. Carbon dioxide is a horrible conductor. Luckily, we have the radiant liquid pipes going right through the metal tiles, and metal tiles are a very good conductor. But the reason why I'm doing that is because if I only have carbon dioxide in here, based on the hope that we're going to keep it cold enough that the polluted water doesn't have a chance to off-gas, but that way there's only 1 gas to siphon out, and we'll send it directly up to the alveolaris, because I do need to keep some atmosphere in here. Because if I didn't have an atmo sensor, it would try to get all the carbon dioxide out, and that wouldn't be good either. And I just realized I've already connected these petroleum generators, so I'm going to deconstruct them, because I am not ready for them to turn down yet. I need to make sure this place is plenty cold. The alveolaris like it between 0 and -80. Suppose we might as well start getting the plume squashes going. The plume squashes like it from -14 to -55, but more importantly, the polluted water freezes at -20. So I want to make sure it's a little bit further south than that. So we're going to go with a -30. And I think I'm also going to split both of these steam turbines to each battery. And just as a matter of convenience, I think this battery is going to go to the thermal aqua tuner setup. And then this battery and its petroleum generator will go to the rest of the colony. Gonna need automation for each petroleum generator. Might as well put the steam turbines in now. Now, because I'm going to be dropping off ice and all sorts of other stuff in here, I'm going to need to make sure that we maintain a certain amount of heat. I also need to make sure that the place doesn't get too hot. Because if it gets too hot, I'm going to end up breaking my thermal aqua tuner or auto sweeper. Let's put in the conveyor loader now. That's going to be picking up that ice. And it's just going to be dropped right in here. In fact, I will snip those off there and put the conveyor chute here. And you know, it's quite possible that this tungsten volcano is going to give us enough heat that we can boil the brine water. And that way we don't have to worry about a desalinator. So let me put a liquid vent in here. And all of this is definitely going to take some intricate amount of automation. Because yes, I want to take water out, but I only want to do that if we need the ice. And I'm also going to want to put brine in, but only if we need the steam. Let me give this some more think and I'll let you know what I come up with. So I just started recording for the day, and here we are. Iron ore's back on the menu. I promise I didn't do anything different. Now I'm wondering if I should go and replace all of the steel conveyor rail with iron ore again. Okay, I've got a plan. Whether it works or not will remain to be seen, but I think it's going to work out. It starts with the tungsten volcano that is obviously going to heat all of this steam up and make a giant mess. When we have that heat and it's above 200 degrees, the steam turbines will turn on. Otherwise, they will not. These steam turbines are not going to be connected to batteries because I want to leave as much heat in here as possible. Instead, the two petroleum generators are what's going to provide the power. They're also going to be providing polluted ice. I say polluted ice versus polluted water because it's going to be so cold in here that all of this is going to instantly flash. When it does, it's going to be picked up by this auto sweeper, sent and dropped onto this tile here. I put it onto a metal tile just to make sure the conduction's a little bit quicker than just with the steam. The polluted ice melts, turns into steam, and then once the place does finally get hot enough, just like we said here, the steam turbines will turn on and take the heat out. Now there's two possible paths, and with the dupes just finishing up the construction, I can now show you. If this Atmos sensor says the pressure in here is below 20 kilos, yes, I would rather it be below 50 kilos, but without a mod, I can't really make that happen. It will then send out a green signal which will keep both this conveyor chute and this liquid vent open. At the same time, I also send the signal to a NOT gate which turns it to red, which then shuts this liquid shutoff. If that liquid shutoff is shut, the water coming from the steam is going to bypass and head back into the sauna. If there's more than 20 kilos worth of pressure, well then we're going to be sending out a red signal, which is going to shut these two vents and alternatively send a green signal to the liquid shutoff, which is going to allow the water to go through the liquid shutoff into this vent here, where the water will be dropped onto this tile and then turned into ice. The ice will then be picked up by this conveyor loader, which has access to both the colony storage and the ice that'll be sitting on this tile. From there, it'll be shipped off all the way over to Alveo Vera Ranch, where this auto sweeper will keep the Alveo Veras fertilized. The last components that we talked about, we've already seen a little bit, and that's this conveyor chute, which is picking up all the polluted ice from here and sending it into the sauna to be melted, turned into steam, and then re-solidified. But we also have access, we go down all the way over here, to this cool slush geyser, where we're also going to be boiling this water to then be consumed by the steam turbine and ultimately turned back into ice. In order to get this whole thing fired up, which I'm trying to do in quite a bit of a hurry, I need to make sure everything's cold enough, namely so the polluted water doesn't turn into polluted oxygen, and rather it solidifies. So we're just going to throw a bottle drainer right onto here and start loading up with supercoolant. Now it's going to be very touch and go because I need to uncork this volcano so I can analyze it, and I also need this whole system to be up and running so we don't cook all the equipment, but I can't run the thermal aqua tuner until there's enough power. So you can see it's a lot of what came first, the chicken or the egg. So I think we're going to risk it here. I'm going to try to take this open as fast as possible. I should have gotten this maybe a half of a cycle ago. You can see that it erupts about once per cycle. So I'm going to try to get it analyzed as soon as possible. So please Stan, go very, very quickly so I can seal this up. I hope this is done. Otherwise, this steam's going to flash the ethanol and we're going to have a very big headache in here. Go, Stan, go! Faster! Faster! Stan thinks it's actually food time right now, and unfortunately, that's not the case. Stan's going to take a day off from the whole, eating, sleeping, or going to the bathroom. We just don't have time for those sort of luxuries. Where are you, Stan? There we go. Oh, and of course, Fallout Stan is already starving? How is that possible? They didn't get shorted yesterday. Any day you want to stop eating, Stan. Any day. Really, Stan? That's the longest chew I've ever seen. Stan was at it for a minute and now decided it's time to use the bathroom. This is not going to go well. Let's go ahead and toggle red alert. Yeah, Stan's going to end up using the bathroom in their suit, but that is much preferable to the alternative. Sorry, buddy. Times are tough. volcanoes, they have to be analyzed. The volcano is now threatening to erupt, and this is going to be way too close. Oh, yeah. Here comes some tungsten. And oh my goodness, the tungsten is sitting here on top of the neutronium. And since there is no environment, it's not actually exchanging with the ice sitting here. No, 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 no. Please soil yourself later, Stan. I don't understand how the tungsten has solidified so quickly. Normally it comes out as molten tungsten. Well, we've got it analyzed, and somehow we have tungsten at 2300 degrees and not a liquid. So all I have to do now is finish off this one rail and then seal it up. Don't worry, I have a plan on how we're going to turn this into a steam bath. It's just going to take a minute, just like everything else does when you only have 4 duplicants. On the rare good news front, the supercoolant is flowing as expected, although it is pretty warm and heating this entire area up because I haven't been able to turn on the thermal aqua tuner yet. That situation should fix itself here in a minute, so we're probably going to deal with a little bit of off-gassing here. I mean, these metal tiles are already 20 degrees. You can see the thermal change because of the supercoolant. Next steps are going to be putting the petroleum generators into place. I need to remove the rest of these ladders. The volcano is erupting again before I had a chance to put any brine water in there. And this time it actually did exchange its thermals with the ice, but we have a problem. The tungsten volcano melted the steel conveyor rails. So I need to figure out another system here, and I need to do it while this place is a vacuum still. So back in there we go. I made sure to snip the power wire so the thermal aqua tuner does not turn on and flash all this water. I think what we're going to do is avoid this tile altogether and do something like this. There we go. That looks a little bit better. And we're not going to have to worry about this tile. I'm not concerned about the materials in there. We'll take those out after. So let's just get this thing sealed up before we have a very bad day, because the next time this thing erupts, all this water is going to end up flashing into steam. Our petroleum generator is on as expected. It's not quite cold enough for this polluted water to freeze yet, but fear not, the aqua tuner now has power. And we're going to say if the coolant is above minus 30 degrees, go ahead and turn on. Now it'll take the thermal aqua tuner a minute to cool that coolant down, but as soon as it does, all of this polluted water will end up freezing and the whole system should come online. And oh my goodness, there's debris sitting in here. There's nothing but oxygen right here. I can get in there real quick, really quick. All that water has quickly turned into steam, mostly thanks to the thermal aqua tuner. But as soon as I turn the system on, we'll just say everything's standard. It will also help heat this area up because all that tungsten will start riding those rails. Notice that the vents are closed because there's more than 20 kilos worth of pressure in here. Oh, I just realized I need a sensor here. Let me go ahead and stop those rails until I can get a timer sensor in there, because we want that tungsten to stay in there as long as possible. So to start off with, I'm going to say only open this vent once every 75 seconds. The petroleum generators are doing a great job creating that carbon dioxide, and I have this Atmos sensor set on if it is above 1 kilo worth of pressure, go ahead and start pumping it out. It's pumping all that carbon dioxide here. Unfortunately, it's too warm right now, and now that the supercoolant has managed to freeze this place back down, I can replant the alveoveras and the plume squashes. All of that polluted ice is frozen now, so I can now set this conveyor loader to say, hey, pick up all the polluted ice. Oh, this system looks like it's going to work. And another great aspect of this, you may be thinking, well, what happens when the alveoveras aren't eating enough of the carbon dioxide? Well, this vent's just going to simply not let more out. I may, in fact, put a subsystem into place that dumps the excess to the vacuumous space. Of course, that wouldn't be the excess. It would be something like that. And that way, this room doesn't end up sitting with 400 kilos worth of carbon dioxide. And look at this, we have fresh tungsten at minus 32 degrees. The only thing I'm a little surprised about is the heat transfer. I was really expecting the tungsten volcano to do a lot more work. Hindsight being 2020, I would have put another auto sweeper over on this side to be able to pick up this dirt, or I could have just moved both of the vents over here. The system is now running sort of full bore, and that is a good and a bad thing. We're still trying to catch up. As you can see, the supercoolant is sitting at around minus 30 degrees, but the water coming from the steam turbine is collecting a little bit here. think we've also had some melted ice or something, because this is now turning into a dumpster fire. I should have put a bunch of temperature shift plates in here. That would have really helped spread the temperature, especially for these tiles down here. But slowly the supercoolant is starting to catch up and freezing all of this. We're going to play a little fast and loose. I've built a somewhat better liquid lock. This one's made out of supercoolant. And the great thing about supercoolant is it does not flash until 436 degrees. So I should be able to get back in there and make those small improvements that we want to make. I was going to leave it, but then this sand tile popped up because of the superheated dirt from the polluted water. So I want to make this system a little bit better. And the supercoolant is holding strong. Good stuff. And I'm going to start off by putting in the temperature shift plates. Now the question is, what am I going to make them out of? I don't have a lot of resources around here, but the igneous rock is, especially for the amount of temperature shift plates I want to put in here. So I think we're just going to do something like this, and that'll take all my igneous rock. I am avoiding the center tile on the volcano because I don't want the temperature shift plate to melt. Even though with this amount of steam pressure, it's not likely, but still. You can also see some of the brine water starting to come in. This is good to see. You know what I ought to do? I think I'm going to add some more automation to this as well. That ensures that the area is not too cool to add more materials. So let me separate it there. Especially now that we're adding 10 kilos per second of brine. I also need to make sure that it is warm enough. And this is going to require an AND gate. I think I can put it, let's say here. And I'll put the thermosensor here. And that way the atmosensor still operates independently for the purposes of allowing the condensed steam to come back into the sauna or turn it into ice versus outside ingredients. Then all I have to do is snip those and the new system will look just like this. Now the question is, can I get an auto sweeper in there? Perhaps right here looks good. And then I'm going to need another conveyor loader because nothing fits here. And then I will also move these rails around so they'll do a 50-50 split with that conveyor loader. Look, it's a weird contraption. There aren't exactly a lot of blueprints for a system that flashes both polluted ice and brine into steam for the purposes of refreezing it for ice for alveo veras, while at the same time providing the carbon dioxide. No, Pip. This is not where you want to be. Move, Pip. Move! Let me set this thermosensor to say, hey, only start adding ingredients once it's above, let's say 200 degrees. And then I'll change this sensor to make sure that the steam turbines only turn back on when it's above 225 degrees. So that means the operating temperature for inside of here should be between 200 and 225 degrees. Will somebody please move the Pip? And finally, we're just going to make sure the auto sweepers have their own responsibilities because I want that tungsten to have the full ride through, whereas we don't really care much about the dirt and the salt. So what I'm going to do is tell this conveyor loader the only thing it can grab is salt and dirt, whereas this one can get all these metals here. And of course, I've ran out of igneous rock because of course I did. So we're just going to use iron ore temperature shift plates. Look. You work with what you can work with. And now in a desperate bid to stop leaking heat, let me shut these. Thank you, Supercoolant, for being the gift that keeps on giving. The pod has managed to exclamation point this episode with gifting us an ash can, who is finally a dupe that is frost-proof that we could use. Yes, they have the ranching that we need. Unfortunately, they are also critter reverse. It won't last too long. They'll eventually get over it. Welcome to the playthrough duplicate number 33. And the first one here on Wintrail, Matthew Noel. Now, the first thing we need to get Matt is someplace to sleep. I don't think there's going to be anything special about this. Oh, we don't even have bathrooms here. But I tell you what, I think that's going to have to wait until the next episode. Today, we've made the planetoid habitable. We've put in all the industry to include oxygen creation, food creation, whatever you want to call this Frankenstein's monster. So the next episode, we'll make sure we find a friend for Matthew and plan our next adventure. We'll also have to figure out the plan on how to feed the tree and capture the resin. I hope you're still enjoying this series, and I'm looking forward to reading what you have to say in the comments below. So until next time, much love, happy gaming, and I'll talk to you soon.